opening routine. I wrote it in September 1989. And I'm going to open with it tonight without changing any of the now irrelevant cultural references. So, all the way back now to September 1989. Oh, it's great to be here. It's annoying being alive, though, isn't it? I'll give you... Isn't it? Oh. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Last Sunday at 6:30, there was a knock at my door, and I went down and I answered it. There's one of these born-again Christian evangelists that they have now there. You've seen him about. And he said to me, "Sir, the answer is Jesus. Now, what is the question?" And I said, "Is the question for which role was Robert Powell nominated for a BAFTA?" And he said, "No, it isn't that." And I said, "Can I have another guess?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Is the question, I was born in 0 BC. And I am commonly regarded as being the inventor of Christianity. But which J am I?" And he said, "No, it isn't that." And I said, "Can I have another guess?" He said, "There's no point coming in now, really, the people that are late there." I said, "There's no point coming in, really, now for that." I said, "There's no..." Well, don't tell me to carry on. The problem is... OK, the problem is you've missed the opening line, right, which ties in with the final line of the thing, creates a whole through line for the whole show, and you missed the opening 2 jokes, which set up a half-hour section in the second half, which will now make no sense, so... You can stay, right, but I don't want to... I don't want you laughing. I don't want you looking at you later on and seeing you going, "This doesn't make sense," because it does. Just you've not... You can't really come in late to me, right, because the thing about me, right, it's all very carefully worked out. The thing about me, right, is I'm not really a stand-up comedian. A lot of people on social media will tell you that. I'm more of a sort of a literary artist, right? And what I do is I use stand-up comedy as a sort of Trojan horse to deliver literary art to places it's not really wanted. Like Salford on a Monday. Coming in late to me, right, it's a bit like thinking, "Oh, I'll read Tolstoy's War and Peace, but I'll rip out the first 10 chapters. And then you go in, who the fuck are all these Russian people? I'm not going back to that joke about the door now. What's the point? Forget it. Well, you know, people should get here on time. So, it's always very difficult to know how to start a show. As I said, if you've seen me before, and I hope you have, I don't really like new people coming. We've seen the problems it creates. What I'd normally do, I'd take whatever the prevailing political narrative is and I'd weave it through the following 2 hours. Is it 2 hours this you've brought us to, Jeff? I thought there'd be a... Is this him? Is this the main one? I thought it was Lee Mack. We were going to Lee... That's what you said, it was Lee Mack. So... Yeah, but what is the prevailing political narrative at the moment? You know, this show, I started writing this show in January last year. I'm already on the 3rd Conservative government of the run, you know. Trying to write a joke about the Rishi Sunak cabinet makes about as much sense as trying to befriend a disposable barbecue.
What do you want?
Or marry a mayfly. Short lifespans they've got, haven't they, madam, with your arms folded. The mayfly it's got a short lifespan. That's why you should be laughing at that. Don't come and see me if you don't know what anything is. And more fucking pricks coming in late there. And I've already done the bit I do when people come in late. You can't really come in late to me, because the thing about me is... What are they laughing at? You don't know, do you? Because you weren't here. I'm not really a stand-up comedian. I'm more of a sort of a literary... Oh, I'm not going to do that. If there's one thing I can't bear in stand-up, it's repetition. So, I can't bear it. So, I've written some jokes about the Rishi Sunak cabinet. I've written them on this piece of card. I'm just going to read them out. There's no point learning them at this late stage, let's face it. Case in point, in January, I had a good bit about Therese Coffey, the then Environment Secretary, but she's gone. Actually, Therese Coffey, you'd think Therese Coffey would have understood the environment, wouldn't you? And the wilderness, and the forests, and the hedgerows, and the ditches, and the culverts, because it looked like that was where she lived and foraged for food. But she's gone. We've got a new bloke, Steve Barclay, Environment Secretary, and what he needs to do, he needs to stop the privatised water companies creaming off all the profits and pumping millions of tonnes of human excrement into our seas and rivers. The problem he's got there is because we've left the EU, everything's been deregulated, and we can't impose the pollution fines from Brussels. Now, the problem for Brexiteers here is there's now so much human excrement in the English Channel, there's a risk it will harden into a crust and the migrants will just walk over it. Don't clap! It's not Fergal Sharkey's birthday party. So that's all I've got on the Tories anyway, because they've all, So I thought, what can I do for the top of the show fun bit? And I thought, well, the royal family, that's ongoing, isn't it? And I was very sorry to see the Queen go, because I respected and admired the Queen, because she was obviously ill, wasn't she, in those last few weeks, the Queen? But she hung on, didn't she? The Queen. She hung on to make sure she had accepted the resignation of Boris Johnson. I don't know what it's like here in Salford, but down in London, the monarchists struggled to know how to grieve for the Queen. And because she'd been in that little Paddington comedy sketch on Comic Relief, a lot of the monarchists, they left marmalade sandwiches outside. They did, outside Buckingham Palace, like Paddington would eat. And then the police said to the monarchists, can you not leave those marmalade sandwiches there, please, monarchists, because they rot down and they attract other vermin. A lot of the monarchists, they left little Paddington Bear dolls outside Buckingham Palace. That was all right. So what happened to them, the royal footmen gathered them up and they were given to Prince Andrew to use as bait. You got a little Paddington Bear doll there in the grass by the swings. Next to that, some kind of stick or a sceptre stuck into the ground. On top of that, the lid of an empty Pizza Express box. They crawl in there. I submitted that joke to a Sunday newspaper. And they said, we can't really print that. Can you rewrite it? So I rewrote it. I put, the royal footmen gather up the Paddington Bear dolls and give them to Prince Andrew to use as he sees fit. And they said, that's worse, really. Because of what's left unsaid. You know, the suggestion Prince Andrew is sitting, lying on silken sheets in the royal apartments, calling to the footman beyond the door, more Paddingtons now! And they're throwing the Paddingtons in, one after another, as fast as Prince Andrew can ruin them. Paddington, 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 ruined, 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 and he never broke a sweat. He never broke a sweat. He doesn't sweat. So, I was supposed to have a stand-up show on BBC Two the night before the Queen's funeral on the Sunday night, and they cancelled it on the day because everyone was so worried, weren't they, about what was the right thing to do, you know. So the BBC pulled me off, and now that's never got a laugh anywhere else. And that tells us something about Salford, doesn't it? You can spend as much as you like on culture. But at the end of the day, they're still scum, aren't they? And they're still little... Doesn't even make sense. What you love? The BBC pulled me off today. What, everyone that works for it in a big line all round Media City, all in the big line, rolling up their sleeves, spitting on their hands. All of them. Is that what you think? All the BBC employees, all the BBC employees, you know, Clive Myrie, all the BBC employees. So, yeah, so they cancelled it on the day, and it was such a late decision that there was no listing anywhere saying what was going on instead. So I sat up till 10 o'clock. I thought, let's see what comes on. And what came on instead of me at 10 o'clock on BBC Two, the night before the Queen's funeral, was this sort of erotic biopic, a biopic of a 19th century French pornographer called Colette, played by Keira Knightley. Has anyone seen this film? No one's seen... Yeah, you have. OK, it's quite a sexually explicit film, isn't it? You remember the 7 full frontal nude scenes, 4 heterosexual, 3 lesbian, and I was sitting there watching this thinking, this is a bit... Presumably some BBC bloke's been through the archive and thought, this is what the Queen would have wanted to remember her life, you know. And it was fun, it's pretty fun. I was sitting there watching it, you know, and I thought I'd better see what was on instead of me, and I'm a man, you know, certain involuntary physical reactions started to occur, and then I became very annoyed with the BBC. Because what they'd done to me in my mind, subconsciously, like one of Pavlov's dogs, they'd now forced me to associate mild involuntary sexual arousal with any prolonged period of enforced public mourning. The problem started the next day, to be honest, with the Queen's funeral. I was sitting in, patriotically trying to watch the news coverage with the kids, you know. The Queen's decomposing body starts rolling down the mall. I thought, oh dear, here we go. I had to go and finish myself off in the shed. And I haven't even got a shed. It's just sitting in the garden on a workbench. Right, that's the end of the fun, topical bit at the top of the show. It's not really of interest to me, that sort of stuff. I just do it because I'm sick of reading people going, the reason you don't see Lee on Have I Got News For You is because he can't write economic topical jokes. Well, I can write them, as we've seen. I can write them very easily. But it's beneath me. It's beneath you. And it's time now to move on into the punishing experimental stand-up that has kept me out of the arenas for 35 years now. So if you've seen me before, and I hope you have, as I said, you'll know... I didn't really know what to do with this show. You know, normally I would take whatever the political through line is. I couldn't work out what that was because everything's in collapse. Or I might have a big prop-based show with a huge falling shark or a landscape, you know, made out of rubbish. I couldn't really afford that this time. So I thought, what I'll do, I'm going to take stand-up back to basics, and I'm going to ask what, in essence, is stand-up comedy, right? And in essence, stand-up comedy is this, isn't it? It's one man, one microphone, one audience, pure, simple, classic. But hey, hang on, Grandad, it's the 21st century now. That definition's a bit out of date, isn't it? Because women are allowed to do comedy now. Not in Salford, by the sounds of it. They are. There's loads of them. When I started in the 80s, there were so few women doing stand-up. Companies didn't really know how to bring them on, you know, and the bloke would come out and he'd go, last week, we had a bloke who could hang a massive weight off his penis, and another bloke, he could shoot a firework out of his arse, and another bloke could do an impression of Charles de Gaulle using only his testicles. And they were brilliant. But this week, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a woman for you. And she's going to try and do comedy. Now, I know, I've seen her backstage, she's a very attractive girl. But will she be funny? Probably not. But it don't matter, does it? Because you don't laugh at the mantelpiece when you're fucking someone. That's right. Turn around, look at this bloke. That's supposed to be an example of out-of-date 80s sexist comedy, sir, not the first bit you've really enjoyed in the whole... You get him, that bloke. Andrew Tate fan club member. But of course today, loads of the best stand-ups are women, so let's change that definition. Stand-up comedy, one man or woman. Yeah. One microphone, one audience, pure, simple, classic. But if you've got teenagers, or maybe you are a teenager, I hope there's some teenagers in, some younger people in tonight. I've got 10 years left on the mortgage. There's no real future in this audience. There's a sort of saga holidays theatre trip. But, yeah, if a teenager would think that was a very reactionary definition. I went to the Edinburgh Fringe last summer with my kids. I've never seen so many transgender people doing stand-up, and I remember the first transgender comedian I met, actually. It was in November 1989, backstage at the Euston Comedy Club, and it was Faye Presto, who was still is a brilliant close-up comedy magician, and Faye Presto did an amazing thing backstage that night, just for me. Faye Presto made a dove disappear in front of my eyes. But Faye Presto also made something else disappear that night, didn't she? Do you know what it was? That's right. It was my prejudices. Not against transgender people, but against magicians. Because before I met Faye Presto, I'd always assumed all magicians were just creepy old men with suspiciously young female assistants. But after I met Faye Presto, blah, 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 rhythm of a joke. That's how jokes work. They're shit, aren't they, jokes? I hate jokes. All jokes are the same with the words changed, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? Fucking pointless. I'm not going to write any more jokes. I'm going to come out here with a blackboard with a list of topics on it. I'm going to point at one of them, and you can have a good laugh imagining what I might have said about it. So let's change that definition. Stand-up comedy, one person, one microphone, one audience, and if you're Frankie Boyle, a large team of uncredited writers. Pure, simple, classic. So there was a definition of stand-up comedy, but as well as a definition of stand-up comedy, there's something else you need to do a show, and that's some material. You're going to need some material. And I don't mind telling you, Salford, I was struggling a bit with this one. I thought, what I'll do, I'll go in the kitchen, I'll shut my eyes, I'll spin round, and whatever the first thing I see when I open them is, I will write a hit, live at the Apollo type routine about that, right? So I went in the kitchen, opened my eyes, and the first thing I saw on the shelf was a cookbook called Veg by the TV chef Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall, right? But right, I'm going to write a hit, live at the Apollo routine about that. Okay, here we go. Live at the Apollo. You know, Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall, he likes meat. In fact, in 1998, he actually cooked and ate a human placenta live on Channel 4, for which he was roundly criticised by the watchdog, who said he should at least have detached it from the baby first. Hey, you can follow me on Instagram. So what I'm saying is, okay, this is me now, madam. I've stopped doing that character. This What I'm saying is, right, if he's going to change tack about what he's writing about, or any writer, you've got to flag it up. You know, like Ian Banks, the Scottish novelist, when he wrote science fiction, like Consider Phoebus and that, he called himself Ian M. Banks. And when he wrote The Wasp Factory and The Crow Road, he called himself Ian Banks, so you knew where you were, right? It's like J.K. Rowling, okay? When J.K. Rowling writes the Harry Potter books for children, she calls herself J.K. Rowling, and she writes sentences like, tall Harry saw the frightening thing, right? But when J.K. Rowling writes thrillers for adults, she calls herself Robert Galbraith, which is a man's name. I don't know where you think this is going. But it's not fucking going anywhere near that. No, it's not worth it. No way. I've got kids. I don't want the grief, right? I know what you're thinking, madam. You're going, it is about that. It's a clever double bluff. It fucking is not about that. No way. It's not worth it. This is not about that. It's about this, okay? So settle it down, right? So what I'm saying is, when J.K. Rowling writes thrillers for adults, she calls herself Robert Galbraith, which is a man's name. I've said, haven't I? I've said. What part of it's not about that? You know, it's not worth it. It's all right for you, isn't it, sitting in the dark in Media City? No one comes here, right? But I mentioned this about 18 months ago. All hell broke loose. I didn't know. I'm not on the internet, you know. And a friend of mine rang me up from Ireland. She went, oh, it's awful what's happened to you, isn't it? What's happened to me? And she said, oh, have you not looked? I looked on the internet, all these people. Get him, kill him! There's a funny little old man. He lives in a Martello tower. Have you seen him? He's got a three-cornered hat on. He films himself shouting at me and puts it on. I'm not there. He puts it on the internet. Have you seen that? They put my home details on Mumsnet. On Mumsnet. They went, that's where he lives, get him. But what was worse, the next line underneath, someone had put, I've walked past that house and it isn't very nice. Right, but that's why this is not about that. It's not worth it. Right? So what I'm saying is, when J.K. Rowling... It's fucking not about it, I've said stop. You do it, I'm not... They put my home details on Mumsnet. Mumsnet has gone insane. Everyone on Mumsnet has been radicalised around a single issue. If Mumsnet was an Islamic website, they'd shut it down. Because it's a load of old women that start drinking rosé at 4 in the afternoon. They think, oh, it doesn't matter. They'll never find his house. Especially if there's a branch of Carluccio's on the way. This is not about that, because it's not worth the grief, right? So get over it. So what I'm saying is, when J.K. Rowling writes thrillers for adults, she calls herself Robert Galbraith, which is a man's name. She isn't actually a man, she just identifies as a man for the purpose of writing thrillers. Which women can't do because they get too frightened while writing them. See? It wasn't what you thought. It was just a sexist joke from the 80s. You like that, didn't you, sir? That was your favourite bit. Second bit for you. Loved it. It's going, oh, now it's picking up. Women writing thrillers. What the fucking hell's that about, eh? Fucking... So what I'm saying is, right, J.K. Rowling... Is he still talking about that? Yes! This is a short bit by my standards. In the second half, there's a routine. It's half an hour long. There's no jokes, and it doesn't make any sense. And it's the best bit. So what I'm saying is, right, J.K. Rowling doesn't become a man when she writes her books for adults. She doesn't sit there in the morning with all women's genitals all over her. Harry Potter books for children, you know, writing about a moth that had a hat on and was in charge of a library, or a dish that was ashamed of its memories. Have you read them, madam? You're like a Harry Potter fan. Have you read the Harry Potter books? Yeah? Would you read that, Harry Potter and the dish that was ashamed of its memories? You wouldn't read that. Wouldn't you be... You wouldn't read that one. Wouldn't you be curious about... to see... Because it's a tragic idea, isn't it? Because it's ashamed, the dish, of its memories, isn't it? But can it tell anyone about it? No, because it's a dish, so it will never have closure. It's a terrible... Would you read that? Are you the sort of person that thinks they're quite well written, actually, the books? Because they're not. So, then... They're for children. They're for children. Then... She doesn't pop up to Hanover Street, Edinburgh at lunchtime, have gender reassignment surgery, and go back in the afternoon with all men's genitals on her, and write about things men are interested in, you know, like batteries or the Bay of Pigs massacre. It's what you like, isn't it? Then... She just rings up her agent. She goes, "Hello, Jeff, I'm a man now." And he goes, "Oh, good." And then when her husband comes in at night and she's still working, he doesn't go, "Oh, God, what is she now?" And he knows that she's a woman and she's writing Harry Potter books if she's writing about a ferret that had a motorbike. Or a cup that was an ombudsman. Would you read that, Madam? Harry Potter and the cup that was... You'd read it, wouldn't you, sir? Yes. No? Leave her alone? OK, fine. The thing about audience interaction, you have to know when to just walk away. Leave her alone. OK, fine. It's a bit of fun, fuck's sake. You don't mind, do you? Would you read that? An ombudsman. It's an ombudsman. The cup. How would it arbitrate a dispute? No one knows. That's all I was going to say. It's a reasonable question. She's what? She's what? Punch her? Who? Me? I'm not going to punch anyone. You'll punch me. What, for asking what a dish would be like if it was an ombudsman? Fucking overreaction. What would you do if I asked you what a fork would be like if it was a gynaecologist? If you're going to get into this, what would you do if you'd punch me? If I said, what would you do if a dish was an ombudsman? What would you do to me if I said that a lemon squeezer was a chartered accountant? What would you do there? I think you've got out of your depth, sir. So, then... He's a plant. People at home are going, "He's a plant, that man. He's an actor. I've seen him in Coronation Street." So... then... And he knows that she's a man if she's writing about things men are interested in. You know, like fuse boxes or who would win in a fight between a shark and a zombie. And, like, the laughter's fading away a bit, isn't it? I think it's because the momentum of the routine was somewhat derailed. But it may be... It may be... It's out of date now, isn't it? It's irrelevant, that kind of stuff. It's irrelevant, that routine. Because everything's gone woke now, hasn't it? I don't know if you've noticed. Everything's gone woke. And these days, I know it has, because I saw Liz Truss talking about it to some neo-Nazis in America. So everything's gone woke, isn't it? Oh, dear. And, these days, people, it's all gone woke. People are allowed to write about whatever they like, irrespective of their gender. It's all wrong, isn't it, sir? It's all wrong. And it was better... It's a shame, isn't it? Because we're cutting across to this man for all the responses about sexism, but he's sat next to a man who hasn't laughed once at anything. And he's going to be in all the shots, isn't it? A grey-haired, judgmental, haunted figure. Like a premonition of my own death in a big coat. Fucking nightclub bouncer and Ingmar Bergman's death. the seventh seal. And then Sid the sexist next to him. A fucking ridiculous trio of... the three main kinds of men, actually. So... these days, people are allowed to write about whatever they like, aren't they? Irrespective of their gender. And it was better in the old days, wasn't it? You knew where you were, didn't you, sir? You went into bookshops, didn't you, in the 70s? Not in Salford, there weren't any. There was just things on fire. You went in... better, though, wasn't it, in those days? Because you could leave your door open, because you didn't even have one. It was smashed in. And... you could... how interested are people from other parts of the country going to be in this? I don't think so. But, I don't live in Salford. I don't want to know about it. Talk about London like the others. So... you knew where you were, didn't you, in the old days? You went in the bookshop. Women's books in the 70s, they were pink, weren't they? With curly writing on them and a pastel drawing of a woman crying into a bowl. And men's books, they were black, weren't they? All red, some of them, with block capital letters on them and a photograph of Hitler being castrated. Now, I went in a bookshop the other day, the book was green. What the fuck's that all about? It had Hitler on the front, yeah, but he was like a cartoon character. He was on holiday with loads of grapes, geese following him. What the fuck's going on? I don't want to read that. So, I don't want to read that. So what I'm saying is, Hugh Fernley Whittingstall from earlier, you remember? That's why you can't come in late and wander about. He's, if he's going to write about different things, he should flag it up. So when he writes about veg, he should call himself Hugh Fernleaf Whittingstall. And when he writes about meat, he should call himself Human Placentas Are Delicious. So some material there, 17 minutes of material there. Sometimes runs a bit longer, that bit. The J.K. Rowling bit didn't quite land like it usually does tonight. The beauty of that routine, to me, is that I never make clear what it isn't about. The problem tonight is a lot of you didn't realise what it wasn't about anyway. So, we're about halfway through now, and so far we've seen a definition of stand-up comedy, haven't we? That was good. And then... it was. And then... we saw... and then we saw some stand-up comedy being invented, didn't we, in front of your menacing, threatening faces. And later on in the show, we're going to see something quite impressive, actually. We're going to see how I am able to give stand-up comedy a genuine emotional weight and depth. And we're going to see how stand-up comedy is delivered. I've not been delivering it so far, I've just been saying it. And you should notice a real gear shift later in the show. One of the great things about the way stand-up is delivered, you can address the audience directly, can't you? You can address the audience directly. People have that bald man with glasses there, bald man with a beard there, bald man with a beard and glasses there, bald man with glasses there, bald man with a beard there, bald man with a beard there, bald man with a beard there, bald man with glasses there, bald man there with a beard, bald man there, bald man with a beard, bald man with a beard and glasses, bald man. The classic Stewart Lee audience there. That we see repeated night after night all around the country, looking like nothing so much as a group of disappointed sub-postmasters vainly waiting for the justice that will never come. That will never come. That justice. You can talk to the audience directly, people love that. What's that on the man in the third row? What's that on your T-shirt there? So like some kind of mountain or something? It's a mountain, yeah. What do the words say on it? Original what? Original mountain? You just come out not knowing what that is. It could mean anything. Well, is it a brand of something? No, it's just a mountain with original written on it. See, I've done this show 200 times now. Normally I point at someone's T-shirt. They know what it means. And then I'm able to have some fun interaction with them. But it's very misleading when a man comes out strewn with images and symbols and words that mean nothing to him. I don't know what that means. I'll put it on. What's that on your T-shirt there, sir? What does that say?
Brand new.
It says brand new. Oh, the band is called Brand New, but is the T-shirt brand new as well? No, it's misleading, isn't it? If I saw you wearing that, I'd come up to you and go, "Is that brand new?" And you go, "Yes." And I'd go, "When did you get it?" And you go, "3 years ago." And I go, "What do you mean?" And you go, "It's a band called Brand New." And I go, "Oh." So, what's that on your T-shirt, sir? Catalonian. What does that mean? What? Cat graviola. Pet graviola. I've got hearing aids, look. I don't know. I can't understand what you're saying. It says pet gladiola. It says Catalonian, and now you're saying pet gladiola. What does it say? What is it? It's a man in a kind of lift shaft with a... That's the shadow of who? Pet gladiola. Who's he? The Catalonian. Is that a... What is that? What is it? I know he's from Catalonia, yeah. One would hope so, unless he's as misleading as some of these people. The Catalonian. Well, what does he do, this Catalonian man? He's what? He's a football manager. Pet Gladiola is a football manager. Right. It's a shame. It's a shame we're filming this, because that's the shittest that's ever got. Fucking... load of people in Salford. What's that? He says in desperation. You with a beard, what does that say? Explorer? You're an explorer, are you? Or do you not even know what that is? It's great, isn't it, towards the audience? People love it. There's, this is supposed to be sold out as well. There's an empty seat there, there's 2 there, 3 there, rather unhelpfully, in the front row. They'll be watching that, won't they? The Jimmy Carr and people like that. And look, there's no one there. And you've scared them off because you symbolise death. People won't come there. They're worried you're going to challenge them to a game of chess and it'll all be over. So, yes, I'm improvising around an Ingmar Bergman film. Yeah, that's what you get off me. So I don't know anything about football. I know about Scandinavian art house cinema. Like on Pet Gladioli. So there's always weird empty seats when I'm sold out. What it is with me is I'm coming to a place and people don't know I am, and they look in the brochure and they go, "Should I go and see this Stewart Lee? Should I go and see him?" And then their friends go, "Yeah, you should go. Yeah, you should go and see him. Really, it's the sort of thing that you should go and see. Like it's a necessary but unenjoyable experience." You know? A bit like when you're on holiday in Eastern Europe and you're having a really great time, but just down the road there's the scene of some awful World War II atrocity, you know. And your partner goes, we should go and see that really because we're here. And then you go, "Well, I'm in the sea, I'm having well, we're here, we've come. I've got a pina colada, we should go and see it." And then you go and see it, don't you? And it's awful, and it makes you despair of all humanity, and you have a horrible... And I'm the that of comedy, basically. I'm the that of comedy. And, so does anyone come on their own tonight? Yes, congratulations, the yelping person there. Give this person a clap for coming on their own. Very admirable. There's no shame in it. Do you find, as you get older, what I think, as you get older, you prefer going to things on your own because you're not really interested in what anyone else thinks of anything? You're one of tonight's winners, you can just go, can't you? But all these other people, they've got to wander out listening to people going, "I thought..." Who fucking cares? We're not interested. Shut up. Anyway, it's great talking to the audience. People love it. And when you're really good at it, like I am, people forget. Pet Gladioli, yeah. People forget that even in a show, and they just think they're having a conversation. But it's a conversation in which the other people are not really invited to contribute anything at all. So it's a bit like the sort of conversation that you might hear on an edition of Richard Herring's podcast, if you've heard of that. Come on, it's a good podcast. Don't go. It's a good podcast because it's always interesting, isn't it, to hear a string of talented young people listening to what he's been up to this week, and all the different thoughts that he's had about things. So people love talking to the audience. It's actually a relatively new thing. When you go out now to anything comedy, music, you'd expect to be addressed, wouldn't you, by someone? If you went to see Pet Gladioli doing a talk, then he might go, "Hello, I am Pet Gladioli. What is that? And you'd expect... That won't make the cut, will it? That won't make the cut. It's racist. It's racist. They don't sound like that, do they, the people of Catalonia? No. No one knows what they sound like. So... what? You expect to be addressed, don't you, madam? Yes, you expect it. But it's actually a relatively new thing. And no, believe it or not, no one had actually addressed an audience directly like this in any form of the arts, whether it's theatre, television, or anything, before 2016. That was the first time... I expect you to be suspicious. Well, yes, madam. You're going, this is either wrong or it's a setup for a very long routine. And it's the latter, isn't it? So, no one had addressed an audience directly like this before 2016, no one. And the first person ever to address an audience directly in 2016, it was Phoebe Waller-Bridge, wasn't it? From the programme Fleabag. She invented it. Didn't she? Yes, man with a beard. And no one... Didn't she, stripy red man? And no one had ever addressed an audience directly before. And she invented it in Fleabag, and she was rightly given acres of broadsheet newspaper coverage and a James Bond script writing deal and billions of dollars of Netflix money. Because no one had ever spoken to an audience directly before. Had they, madam? No. Had they? Ingmar Bergman's death? No. No one had ever done it. And she invented it. And there certainly hadn't been a long-running proletariat art form running many hundreds of years in which the audience were routinely addressed on a nightly basis in venues that appeared to have been purpose-built to accommodate that. Well, of course, there had been. It was pantomime, variety, stand-up. But the problem with all those genres is they were performed and consumed principally by working-class people, and they weren't educated enough to realise how innovative they'd been. They were too busy just spilling Bovril all down themselves and appraising greyhounds. And it took a posh, educated woman to come along and explain to them what they'd been doing, because they didn't even understand what it was that they'd done. And it changed everything, didn't it, when Phoebe Waller-Bridge addressed the audience directly in Fleabag. It changed everything. And like me, you can probably remember where you were when you saw the first episode of Fleabag. I remember I was at home watching the first episode of Fleabag. I like to watch the new comedy shows as soon as they're broadcast so I can save time by dismissing them out of hand immediately. And it started, didn't it, the first episode of Fleabag, you probably remember. Fleabag was lying in bed, wasn't she? And there was a young man behind her, sir, like you, but he wasn't wearing a Pet Gladioli t-shirt. He was wearing nothing. And he was wriggling about, making a lustful face, you probably remember. And then suddenly, an amazing thing happened. It was incredible, like the moon landings it was. Fleabag looked up directly into the camera, didn't she? Do you remember that? No one had ever done that before. I went, what the fuck? What's going on here? It was incredible. And then suddenly she spoke to us. Do you remember? No one ever... She spoke to us directly, didn't she? She went, hello. My name's Fleabag. And I'm afraid I've been rather naughty, and you have just caught me having anal sex. I went, what's going on? I was freaking out. I thought she could see me through the television. So I jumped up, I put my trousers back on, sir, and I realised nothing was ever going to be the same again, was it? No! Then it wasn't! And suddenly people were being addressed right, left and centre, weren't they, in film, theatre, television. But do you remember what it used to be like in the pre-Fleabag days, before Phoebe Waller-Bridge invented talking to the audience? Do you remember? It was rubbish, wasn't it? Do you remember the news in the 1970s? Angela Rippon was under the desk, wasn't she, in a Hessian sack, just mumbling, just going, that fucking Colonel Gaddafi, what a fucking bastard. Colonel Gaddafi, a fucking... Hey, you said it's fucking Colonel Gaddafi? He said him, fucking Colonel Gaddafi. Hey! Angela Rippon there from GB News. Do you remember? Good impression, that. Do you remember when she was young? She's not like that now. Do you remember? You remember her, don't you, on Morecambe Wise with her legs? Do you remember? She had legs, no one could believe it. I thought she was just some stumps being wheeled around. So, do you remember? Oh, she's got legs, people couldn't believe it. Do you remember? Do you remember what the weather forecast was like before Fleabag invented talking to the audience? It was rubbish, wasn't it? Michael Fish he wasn't a real fish, madam. He was just a man called Michael Fish, not like Mickey Mouse. Do you understand? Michael Fish, he wasn't a real fish, if there's any children at home. Michael Fish was behind the weather map, wasn't he, reaching round? You're going, what's this? Is it fog, Jeff? Is it fog or wind? I can't see, can I? Because it's not looking at the audience hasn't been invented. You'll have to cut the felt more accurately in future, I don't know. It was rubbish, wasn't it? The weather in those days. Do you remember what stand-up used to be like in the pre-Fleabag times? It was terrible. I remember my first gig, the Acton Banana, Acton High Street, September 1989. I was called on by the compere. I shuffled along the back wall, as everyone did in the pre-Fleabag times, taking care not to address the audience because Phoebe Waller-Bridge hadn't invented it. I did my act. Hello, it's great to be here. It's annoying being alive, isn't it? I'll give you an example. I mean, last Sunday at 6:30, a knock at my door went there and answered, one of these born-again Christian evangelists. So he said to me, sir, the answer is always a question. I said, this is a question for which role was what pound on money for a BAFTA? He said, no, isn't that a second of the game? He said, yeah. I said, I was born in 0 BC and I was going, this is rubbish, isn't it? Rubbish. Because I can't see the audience, I can't read the room, it's terrible. But that's what everything was like before Fleabag invented talking to the audience. And I remember that night I was walking home after my first ever gig up Horn Lane in Acton. I was 21 years old. I'd done one gig and I was already thinking to myself, there has to be a better way of doing this. I wasn't sure what it was, Salford. I suspected it might have something to do with the relative positioning of audience and performer. But I wasn't sure, right? But the main thing is, I was 21 years old, I'd done one gig, and I was already thinking outside the box, yeah? And if you've been coming to see me these last 35 years or so, Salford, Manchester, you'll know that I've always been regarded as something of an innovator, an iconoclast. And if you're a woman who's been brought here tonight by a man, he will have explained that to you on the way here. He'll have gone, yeah, my favourite comedian, actually. It's a guy called Stewart Lee. No, you won't have heard of him because he's not on all the kind of shit you watch. Stewart Lee. Yeah, he's amazing. Oh, he's amazing, Stewart Lee. When when you've seen Stewart Lee, you'll find you can't really watch other stand-up afterwards. Stewart Lee, no, he'd not been on that, he wouldn't go on that. But, Stewart Lee. Yeah, who's Stewart Lee. Stewart Lee. Stewart Lee. Stewart Lee. It's Stewart. No, it's Stewart Lee. Stewart Lee. Stewart Lee. Stewart Lee. It's Stewart Lee. Stewart Lee. Stewart Lee. It's Stewart Lee. Stewart Lee. That's Stewart Lee. Stewart Lee. Stewart Lee. Stewart Lee. Oh yeah, the first time you've seen Stewart Lee, you won't understand what he's doing at all. But by about the 15th time, you'll see it's very clever. What he does is he comments on his act as he goes along, often in the character of another person. It's amazing. So yeah, no, he wouldn't go on that. He was asked to, but he's turned it down. Here's Stewart Lee. Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah, he's amazing. Stewart Lee. Stewart Lee. Yeah, Stewart Lee. Yeah, Stewart Lee. Yeah. I'm not even sure that what Stewart Lee does is comedy, really. It's more like it's some kind of art. Or it's jazz, actually. It's a kind of like a jazz, a bit of ideas, or not of sound. It's amazing. Stewart, no, that's Lee Mack. He's completely different. It's like a clown or something for children. So, it's from, it's in the Chocker Brothers or something, I don't know. But it's, so... Stewart Lee, yeah. I've got tickets for him at the Salford Lowry on Monday. So, you should come, actually, because Monday's a difficult night for comedy. I think he's done too many dates there. A lot of the people won't really be that into him. They won't understand what their clothes mean. And some of them will be both physically and spiritually menacing. And it's sure to be a struggle for him, and it may not go well. And that, to me, is when he's at his best, actually. I actually prefer Lee when it's not working. I think it's more interesting. But it probably won't work on Monday. So you should come. You don't want to come? Okay, fine. Well, we'll do something else. You don't want to do anything with me? Okay. Is this a bit close to home for you, madam, is it? Yeah? It is, isn't it? There's never a queue for the ladies, though, is there, at my shows? Have you noticed that? It's not my fault. I try to be inclusive. You see me. The problem is, a lot of the women, wives, girlfriends, partners, they don't want to come and see me, right? Because the problem is, a lot of the men that like me, they're sort of the same as me. Okay? So the wives, girlfriends, partners, grandmothers, they don't want to come and see another monotonous, passive-aggressive man. Just waffling on about things. But it's worse than at home, isn't it? Because it's coming through these massive speakers. So you can't just go, that's very interesting, dear, yes. I've just got to go in the garden, actually, because I think the hedgehog's fallen in its milk. You have my sympathy, ladies. I know this is the case. I know what it's like. You're trying to get ready for bed at night, aren't you? You're trying to get in the shower or have a talk about the gas bill or something. And he's lying in bed, isn't he, on his back. He's got a laptop on his chest, and he's watching little clips of me on YouTube, isn't he? And he's going, oh, 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 God, oh, he's a genius. And so am I, because I like him. And you're going, are you watching that boring bloke again? He goes, no, not boring, actually. You can't just watch a minute of it. You have to watch the whole 4.5 hours. Because it's all about structure, like Tolstoy. So... I know this is the case, because they tell me a woman came out to me in Leeds in May, and she said, She said, I wasn't going to come and see you tonight, she said. But I did come, and you know what? I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I said, oh, and will you be coming again? And she said, no. A woman came up to me in Edinburgh in August, and she said, you know that bit you've got about J.K. Rowling? She said, I agree with you about that intellectually and morally, she said, but all the same, it's not great, is it, to be having a go at someone, a successful woman, for having an opinion. And I wondered what you thought of that. And I said, well, I can see where you're coming from. I don't know what I can do about it in that joke. And she said, well, maybe you can address it later in the show. I said, I don't think that would work. You are supposed to talk to the audience now. I very nearly invented it, but I lost my nerve. And of course, Phoebe Waller-Bridge got there first. I don't resent her that. I think it's better that ultimately all that broadsheet newspaper coverage and James Bond script writing commissions and billions of dollars of Netflix deals went to someone who already had an enormous private family income. But, because I'd only have wasted it, you know, on beans probably. But you are supposed to talk to the audience now. Who's seen me before here? Any of you? Yeah. So you've noticed tonight I'm addressing the audience a lot more directly than I normally would. I don't really like doing it. I find it very stressful. I don't really like talking to people generally in real life, to be honest. If I have to talk to people, I normally look at the floor or I look sort of to the side of their face. And if I have to lip read, hearing aids, I actually look directly at someone. I find it incredibly terrifying. And I hadn't really realised that I'd spent my life avoiding eye contact. So it was about 15 years ago. I was working with a TV director, Peter Orton, probably know Peter, and it obviously been building up because suddenly he just lost his rag with me and he shouted, when talking to someone, Stewart, it's customary to look them in the eye. And then he walked off and I was left alone and I kind of went to pieces really because I realised for the first time that I'd spent my whole life trying to avoid any, you know, and I don't know why. Look, I'm not a therapist, but I was trying to think why this might be, and I spent the first 18 months, 2 years of my life in care. I was shunted around a succession of children's homes in Shropshire and Staffordshire, so I wouldn't have had the kind of moment-to-moment understanding of intimacy. So there's about 20 minutes of the show left now. And this is the optimum point for bringing in this kind of material. About 20 minutes from the end, you bring in an emotionally manipulative subplot. And you normally find that gives you enough of a push just to carry the audience with you through to the end. If you've seen a lot of long-form narrative stand-up, you'll have seen other stand-ups doing this. People like Daniel Kitson, Hannah Gadsby, Fern Brady. I was the first person to do this. But yeah, it's been a struggle in adult life. I suspect that I've had periods of undiagnosed depression. Certainly, I was fast-tracked by my, you know, and I found lockdown particularly difficult. I know a lot of us did. I just lost it really. I stopped caring about myself. I gained weight. I lost weight. Gained weight again. Drinking. At the end of lockdown, I went to see my GP. And I did something I wouldn't normally do. I went to see my GP and I said to him, Doctor, I think I'm depressed. And he said, we're doing this, are we? Seriously? fucking Dr. Joe. What's fucking wrong with you, prick? I've got impatience to see. And I said, come on! Return the ball! Doctor, I think I'm depressed. And he said, whenever I'm depressed, he said, I cheer myself up by going to see the funniest comedian that there is. Stewart Lee. And I said, I am Stewart Lee. He said, I didn't recognise you, put on a lot of weight. Good joke that, I think. And then he said, you may have an undiagnosed neurodiverse condition, he said. Most comedians have, and they've all been able to monetise it. He said, I'm going to ask you 5 questions that will tell me, he said, if that's the case. Now, I've got these 5 questions here, and I'd like to read them out. If people have seen me before, really you'll know there's normally a bit in every show, if you've seen them on the telly, where I read out some serious thing, like a death threat or something, that I've had, and to make it funny, underneath I will play in a light jazz instrumental, normally in a major key, and you find the contrast between the seriousness of the questions and the frivolity of the jazz will create humour. Now, I'd like to do that tonight, read out these questions and play in the jazz, but I can't play in the jazz because we've left the EU. Now, I don't want to get back into all that, okay? We are where we are. People knew what they were voting for, and suggest otherwise is patronising, I think. But the problem is, okay, I need to read this out, but I can't play it because we've with the EU. The problem is, I'm filming this, right, and when you film it and then sell it on to a broadcaster, you have to pay a clearance fee for the music, any music in it, and that's normally about £6,000, right? Now, when we were in the EU, that one £6,000 fee, that would cover you for selling this to any EU territory, and because of the negotiating power of a trade bloc, Brussels could get really cheap deals off, Canada, America, whatever. The problem now is we've left the EU, so when I film this, and if I want to try and sell this on, even just to the Republic of Ireland, if it's got music in it, I've got to pay another £6,000 every time. Now, these 2-hour blocks of shows you see of mine, they normally give me about 110 grand to film them, and then after all the costs, I'm left with about 8,000-9,000 before tax and an agent's commission. So as you can see, I've only got to try and sell it on one more time, and I've lost money because I can't play in the jazz because we've left the EU. And I know there's been a lot of problems with Brexit people didn't see coming. But I think if people had known that it would limit their access to jazz, we may have seen some very different voting patterns. Particularly in a lot of the hardcore Leave voting towns, like South Shields, Peterborough,
I'm glad that's done.
Scunthorpe. They're all big jazz towns. Scunthorpe's like New Orleans, isn't it, in the 50s? Paris after the war, Melodies drifting for every wrought iron balcony. So I can't play in the jazz because we've left the EU. The problem is this doesn't really work, these questions, without the jazz playing in underneath. So what a lot of you will be thinking, you're probably thinking, just cut this bit, right? Just cut it. I can't cut this bit, right? Because, right, if you've seen me before, right, okay, you'll have noticed this show, it's a lot more fun than they normally are, isn't it? There's a kind of solid 20 of Frankie Boyle kind of punchy gags at the top. There's a lot of fun interaction with the audience. Sometimes it goes wrong. But it's mainly... The show feels a lot looser than they normally do, and a lot less formal. But when you get home tonight and you think about what you've seen, you'll realise that, of course, this show is as rigorously structured as they always are. You may realise that, you may not realise that. None of the critics did. The problem is I can't drop this bit because it ties back to the beginning, it sets up the end, and it's sort of the emotional through line of what the show is about. But it won't work without the jazz, but I have got to do it. So what I'm going to ask you to do here tonight is in your own heads. When I read these questions out, yeah, all of you, just imagine, silently, a simple jazz instrumental in a major key running underneath what I'm saying, and then it'll be fine. And if you're sitting there thinking, this isn't funny, then you've imagined the wrong music. Because it fucking is funny. Right, now we need this bit to work, otherwise the last 10 minutes goes wrong, right? So we're just going to talk you through it. So I will say, imagine your jazz now, Salford, and then and at home you can imagine your jazz as well. Probably better, to be honest. And then let the jazz run on underneath,
I have no
right?
time for your pathetic
When I start reading out these questions, just sort of dial it down a little bit, and then bring all the jazz up together at the end. Yeah, there's a lot of people that are really struggling here in Salford. Let's talk you through it again. So I will say, no, we need this to work, because otherwise the last 10 minutes go. So I'll say, imagine your jazz now, Salford. Run the jazz on underneath. Simple. Just keep it. There's no need to do anything. Don't go mad, you know. Don't suddenly do an amazing trombone solo and go, oh, have you heard these trombones? They're incredible. I didn't know the trombone could be like that. Don't do that, because that's for your benefit, isn't it? This is for me. Help me. Don't do that. Do you understand? Right, what I'm saying is, I will say, imagine your jazz now, Salford, right? Run the jazz on underneath, a simple... The best man in the stripes. You don't have to worry about it, sir. It is jazz, right? But nothing that sounds like it could have come after about 1956, 57. Okay? Well, because that's when the avant-garde influence started to come in, isn't it? Yeah, you got people like Sonny Murray on the drums, yeah? Yeah, changing our idea, not just of rhythm, but of what time itself was, really. Admittedly, mainly in his Scandinavian radio session work with Henry Grimes, people like that, but... well, those tapes must have been heard in New York, I think, because... in terms of the approach to the kit at that time, it's almost like a Switches. Or, someone like Albert Ayler on the saxophone. A lot of you, like ravers from here, you'd think, oh, that just sounds like old gospel music, and it does. But what Albert Ayler was doing is he was using that music sort of ironically as a critique of post-war American race politics, right? And both those things are great, but they're not really relevant to what we're trying to do. Just park that. Worry about that. Get back on board. I will say, imagine your jazz now, Salford. Run the jazz on under... Look at you. You go, what kind of lineup is it? It doesn't matter. Just a simple trio, mate. Can you do that? Just drums, bass, not the fucking Sun Ra Orchestra. 20 blokes dressed as Egyptians from space drumming mincemeat into a well, or whatever the fuck it is they do. In a publicly funded venue, right? So, don't do that. I will say, listen, this is being filmed, right? So pay attention, right? Let's get this good. I will say, imagine your jazz now, Salford. Run the jazz on underneath, simple trio. That, you know, give everyone a solo if you must. I'd rather you didn't. But if you do, keep it in the same key, yeah? Don't think, oh, let's go like Eric Dolphy, dissonant. Challenge the fascism of harmony. Don't do that. Same time signature. Don't think, oh, I'll leave the drums in 4/4, everything else in 6/8. After 28 bars, they'll all meet up at the end like Van de Graaff Generator. It's not fucking prog rock wank. This is jazz. Jazz, Salford. I will say, imagine your jazz. Run the jazz on a simple 3 or 4, run it underneath, keep it the right side of the 50s avant-garde explosion, yeah? Simple trio, If you must give everyone a solo, don't. But if you do, keep it. Make sure the solo quotes fairly heavily from whatever melodic themes you've established at the top, so people feel like they're in safe hands and not going, oh, where's this going? Right. So establish. I will say, imagine your jazz now, Salford. Run the jazz on underneath, a simple 3 or 4 note theme from a little trio. I'll start speaking, if you do solos, relate back to the original thing. When I'm speaking, drop the jazz down and then bring all the themes together at the end and resolve it, perhaps with a diminished seventh. And for God's sake, don't get sidetracked into a long, self-indulgent improvisation. That was touch and go, wasn't it? Do you think people at home I'd still be doing that routine if it was normally received with that level of bafflement? That's normally flying out the traps. That's like, what's this? What's going on? He's doing some kind of lecture. Of course I'm not. That's what I do. That's my comedy. It's not a mistake. That kind of routine. That's why the broadsheets call me the world's greatest living stand-up, which they do, in case you... Why have we not heard of him? I don't know. There's been an administrative error. It's because of stuff like that. That's what they like. It flatters their intelligence, the broadsheet newspaper critics. Because what I do is as close to being not funny at all as it's possible to be. And then just at the last minute, when you want to blow your own head off, you go, oh, it turns around. Oh, it's brilliant. Right.
Thank you. Olga sure can tell a good story.
So we're going to read out the 5 questions from the doctor. Remember from earlier? Can you remember? Start your imaginary jazz now, in your head. Don't start humming it. I don't want to have to come back here and get a copyright clearance off you. Question 1, he said, do you take things very literally? For example, you may become fixated on particular words or phrases or not understand simple social customs. It's been the base of my act for 35 years. Then he said, do you always have the same routine and get very anxious if it changes? Fuck you. Fuck you, I find that genuinely it's not the same routine. I am the most prolific stand-up there has ever been. I'm known for that. I've written more than any. It's not the same. I come around all these fucking shithole towns every 2 years with a whole new... It's not the same route. Admittedly, I work within very narrow stylistic tram lines. Tram lines, yeah, you like that, don't you? But it's not... Admittedly, I did the same routine twice tonight, but the second time, I was facing the wall, so it's completely different. I know what you were laughing at. You weren't even here for the beginning. Fucking idiot. It's not the same, and you can fuck off, right? Because I don't get any of the credit that I deserve. Fuck off. Then he said, you find it hard to make friends and prefer to be on... We do, don't we, person on their own? I don't care. I don't care. I haven't got any friends. When I was going to get married, right, there was only 2 blokes I felt I knew well enough to ask to be my best man, right? And one of them didn't want to do it because he'd been invited to a party in Tiverton. Where he'd been told there would be free cannabis-flavoured jelly. And he was 52 years old. And the bloke who did do it, I am very grateful to him to this day, but I find I can't really talk to him anymore because I voted for Remain and he voted for Leave. And I don't know about you, but I find I can't really talk to someone unless they can see that I'm right about everything. I'm 56, I've got coronary artery disease, I'm deaf. I don't want to waste whatever time I've got left talking to someone I don't agree with about anything. Yeah, then that's right, one person clapping on their own. It's going to be a hard edit, this, isn't it? It's been a lot of... I say it myself, there's been some good ad-libs and improvisation. It's going to be a hard edit. Much easier, isn't it, to be like Jimmy Carr and write a very tightly structured set of short economic jokes, like cracker gags written by Hitler. Then he said, remember this bit from earlier? He said, do you have a very keen interest in certain subjects or activities bordering on obsessional? Well, I did win Celebrity Mastermind answering questions on the free jazz guitarist Derek Bailey, where I scored an unprecedented 38 out of 40 with no passes, but to say it's obsessional is a stretch, I think. Then he said, do you like change? I don't like change. Stop your imaginary jazz now, stop it. You weren't doing it, were you, sir? You weren't doing it. I've seen through you. You weren't doing it. You only get out what you put in. You should know that by now. So, he wasn't doing it, I just could see him. So, no, I don't like change, and I appreciate I'm very lucky to do this for a living, but it's the things that I struggle with, you know. When I do these shows in London, I do a 350-seater for sort of 5 nights a week, 6 months, because I like to go in the... I could do a week in a big place, but I like to go to the same place every day. I know where I am, I go in, I hang this up, I've got a hearing aid charger and my stereo, and I know where I am. But on tour, every night is different. You know, Tuesday I might be in Crew, and I go in there, and I'm wearing this, and I'm doing this, and it's the same, but in the dressing room, there's 4 chairs and 2 cups, and a kettle with a kind of a black plastic housing, and that's fine. But then the next night I'll be in Chester, and I go in there, I'm wearing this, I'm doing this, that's the same. But I go in the dressing room, and there's 6 chairs and 4 cups, and the kettle is like a silver 1970s one with a black lid, and there's absolutely no need for it to be different like this. Then the next night I'll be in Glasgow or somewhere, I go in there, I'm wearing this, I'm doing this, that's the same. Well, I go in the dressing room, there's 1 chair, there's 5 cups, look, where's the kettle? There isn't one, and the bloke goes, you go down there, and in that room there's an urn, and that's always boiling, and it's better, and it isn't better, because it's got no relationship whatsoever with the previous 2 nights. And you sit out there, don't you, and you look up at me, and you envy me.
Right, you listen to me, right? This is being filmed. This is being filmed. And I need this to work. I'm not on telly much anymore. I need this to work. There's about 10 minutes left, and then we can go. And for the last bit to work, you have to envy me. And you should envy me. Because you know what I've got in the fridge in my hotel. Before I came here in London, I bought 6 150-gram packs of sliced mushrooms that were reduced at Sainsbury's. And I've boiled all them up, and then I've grilled some chicken, and I've cut that up, and I've made 6 equally, and I've sized meals in little tubs that I kept from the Vietnamese takeaway, and I've put 30 grams of low-calorie mayonnaise in each one, and I can eat. I don't have to think about what I'm eating at all. I can just eat those. So you should envy me. But I stand up here and I look out at you, Salford, and I envy you. I envy you the simplicity of your humdrum lives. The pleasures of the simpletons, the simple Salford jobs, you know, the tram drivers and baristas. You know, because look at me, I'm a mess. I don't mind, I'm a shambles. I'm all over the place. I'm up, I'm down, I don't know what's going on. But you, look at you,
You go in and work to the same place every day, don't you? You see the same people, your workmates. They're not your friends, really, but you're on nodding terms, speaking terms with them. And you all live in a comforting web of elasticated familiarity that is denied to me. And I envy you that. Because you go into work, don't you, on Monday morning, and you go, morning. Morning. Cheers. And at the end of the day, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, yeah. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, yeah. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, yeah. And the next day, Tuesday, morning. And at the end of the day, I'll see you tomorrow, yeah. Yeah, see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, yeah. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow, yeah. I'll see you tomorrow. The next day, Wednesday. Morning. Morning, yeah, cheers. Morning, yeah. Yeah, well, cheers, yeah. It was cold in the night, yeah. Cold old night, you know that? And at the end of the day, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, yeah. I'll see you tomorrow, yeah. I'll see you tomorrow, yeah. I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah, a bit warmer tonight, hopefully. A bit of a warmer night. God willing, yeah. And the next day, Thursday, morning, yeah. Cheers. Morning, yeah. Yeah, cheers. Yeah, morning, yeah. Yeah. It did rain in the night, yeah. No. Because I was asleep, so Well, because when I went down in the morning, I could see that it was... And at the end of the day, yeah, I'll see. Yeah, have a good... Yeah, I'll see. Yeah, I'll see. Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah, I'll see you. Yeah, I'll see you. Yeah, See you, mate. Yeah, see you, mate. Yeah, see you, mate. Yeah, see you, mate.
Yeah, I'll see you, mate. Yeah, I'll see you. Yeah, it's Friday tomorrow, yeah. Roll on the weekend. And the next day, Friday. Yeah, it's Friday, yeah. Yeah, it's Friday, yeah. It's Friday, yes, Friday, yeah. It's a Friday, yeah, it's Friday. Friday, yeah. Friday. Party on, dude. At the end of the day, have a good weekend, I'll see you on Monday. Have a good weekend, I'll see you on Monday. Have a good weekend, I'll see you on Monday. Have a good weekend, I'll see you on Monday. Have a good weekend, I'll see you on Monday. Have a good weekend, I'll see you on Monday. Have a good weekend, I will see you on Monday. Listen, you don't fancy going for a quick drink after work, do you? 'Cause no, well, I can't go actually. So, and I didn't want to, so it doesn't matter. But you did want to, didn't you? And you craved that one moment of human intimacy, perhaps more than anything else you could imagine. And that's your life, isn't it? Your shit life. Your shit
What can I
life.
do for you?
This is
The
my
Majors
life.
Guild has made more.
Pure, simple,
Goodbye.
classic. But listen to that, there's no laughs, are there? There's just a strange, tense atmosphere of hopeless despair. A bit like the kind of atmosphere you might get at the end of an award-winning piece of theatre. But no, it's not. It's not appropriate at the end of a comedy show, so we'll end on a laugh. We will end on a laugh. I'll leave you with a final closing joke. I've only ever written one decent closing joke. I wrote it in September 1989. I don't know what you're laughing at, you. So, I'm going to finish with it now without changing any of the now irrelevant personal details. And then I'm going to go. I'll see you in a couple of years. So, I was talking to my granddad the other day. He's 94 years... Oh, he's dead now, obviously. But he was alive when I wrote this. I'm not sick, you know. So, I was talking to my granddad the other day. He's 94 years old. I said to him, Grandad, you are 94 years old. What, in your experience, has been the worst thing about growing so old? And he said to me, Stu, in my experience, the worst thing about growing so old has been watching all of the friends that I grew up with slowly dying off one by one. And I said to him, well, Grandad, you fed them those berries. Poisonous berries there. Thank you for watching. Good night.